Hello everyone. So in this video we'll continue on the animal diversity. So as you have remember, we started with the Porifera, Cnidaria, Lophotrochozoa, Ecdysozoa, and now it is time to go to the last group, which is the Deuterostomia. So I'll just remove this annotation. So what are the Deuterostomia and what is the main characteristic that we'll see there? From the name you can guess that these are Deuterostomes. So as you remember, we have compared the Proterostomes against the Deuterostomes. So one of the three differences is regarding the type of cleavage. So it is radial type of cleavage in the Deuterostomes, which is mentioned here as a recap. So the two tiers of cell that make the 8 cell stage, each one of the cell is arranged directly on top of the one below. And in terms of the fate of the plastopore, whether the plastopore will develop into a mouth or whether it will develop first into the anus and then the mouth will come second. So we have this type of fate of the plastopore, that the plastopore and the Deuterostomes will develop into the anus, so the mouth will come second, and that's then the origin of the name Deutero. Moving on, we will find that we have three divisions within the Deuterostomes. So we have the Hemichordata, the Chordata, and the Echinodermata. And if you count the number of species, you will find that, for example, something like the arthropods, which we have covered before, contains more number of species than the Echinodermata and the Chordata combined. So starting with the first division, we have the Echinodermata. So this includes the sea stars, the sea urchins, sand dollars, and sea cucumbers. So most of them are shown in this image, and also in this one they are shown in a more clear way. So as you can see, they are slow-moving or sessile marine organisms, and they are characterized by having an endoskeleton of the hard calcareous plates. So they are slow-moving, and the way they protect themselves from predators is by having this hard endoskeleton made of calcareous plates for providing the protection. And if we go to the four characteristics that we used in classifying the organism, we'll find that they are Deuterostomes, and that is normal because now we are talking about groups of Deuterostomes, and they are true coelomates. So they have a coelom that is completely covered with mesoderm, and they are triploplastic, so they have the three germ layers. And what might seem a bit strange is that they have a body plan that is bilateral. So if you go to this or to these images, you may see that actually the adult stage should have this radial symmetry, so something like that, and so on. So why it is bilateral? And the reason is that many animals, including here in the Echinodermata, the body plan is referring to the larva, the early stage of development, which is the larva. So as you can see, in the larva stage we have a bilateral symmetry, and then during the development this body plan may change. So once we have this secondary stage of development, we will have the radial body plan, but the body plan that will be assigned for the organism is the one that has been acquired during the early stage. And as we said, here in the Echinodermata, the larva is bilaterally symmetrical. So one important characteristic about the Echinodermata is the presence of the water vascular system. So this is a very important characteristic that allow the organism to do many of the functions. So it allows the organism for locomotion, gas exchange, and feeding. So as you can see, this starts with the madreporite. So this is an opening, and if we zoom it, we will see this central opening that allows the seawater to fill the water vascular system. And what will happen, this water will, and it contains oxygen, that's why it allows gas exchange, and also after it will fill all the canals that are present in the 5 arms of the sea star. So what will happen, they will finally fill what we will call the tube feet. So these tubes, they end up with very numerous amount of tube feet, and each one of these tube feet contain what we call the ampulla, which is the sac-like structure, and this ampulla ends up with the podium, which extends outside the body of the sea star. So what will happen after the water will come in through the madreporite, it will move and fill all the canals and tubes of the water vascular system. It will fill this muscular sac, the ampulla, and then this pressure will cause the podium to move in certain direction. It will extend out of the body of the sea star, and actually the sea star will extend this feet, this podium, in the direction that it likes to move in, and by coordinating the movement of these multiple tube feet, the sea star is able to move. So it's like a hydrolytic system, and also it helps in the feeding. So once the sea star lands on the surface of an organism at the bottom of the sea with, let's say, a hard shell, so these tube feet, they have sensory, some of them they play sensory function. So what they will do, they will sense any like a gap in the structure of the shell, and then using the hydraulic system they will exert pressure, and that will cause the opening of the shell of the organism, and that's why they help the sea star in its feeding. Also, the movement itself is also allowing the feeding, or they can help to hold or grab on a prey that will be later on be uptaken inside the sea star. So as you can see here in this video, here we have the madreporite, and the entrance of the water will fill the whole system. And here we have the two parts that make the tube feet. And once this like head gets filled, the feet will move in certain directions. So the extension of the feet in certain direction, this collaborative movement will allow the sea star to move in certain direction. And as we said, they have, some of them, they have this sensory role, and once they land on an organism, they will try to find like a gap in the skeleton of that organism, and then they will exert their pressure in order to attack that organism. So here is another image showing the group of these feet. So the next group that we'll focus on will be the chordates. So an important thing to keep in mind is that vertebrates, is the word that we'll use for organisms having vertebra, so this bony structure that surrounds the spinal cord. But some invertebrates are still included in the chordate phyla. So the chordate as a phyla includes both vertebrates and invertebrates. And two specific invertebrates groups that are included in the chordates are the urochordates and the cephalochordates. So why they are included in the chordates? Because they are more closely related to the vertebrates than any other invertebrates. So that means within the Deuterostomes we have the vertebrates, but still there are some invertebrates within the Deuterostomes, and even some invertebrates within the chordates. And as we said, here are two examples of invertebrates that are including the chordates. Moving on to this figure. So this figure is really important because it summarizes most of the details of the chordates, and we will come to it a lot. Actually, it summarizes the Deuterostome in general. So as you can see here, the Deuterostomes, and we have this phyla, the Echinodermata, which we have covered, which include the sea star. Then the next division we will have the chordates, and it highlights the different groups of chordates and the main evolutionary step or the adaptation that has taken place. So for example, here the appearance of head, this will create a group called craniates. So cranium means like head, and then so above from that they don't have heads. Then we have another evolutionary event, the vertebral column, so that will characterize the vertebrates and so on. So please revise this figure and try to refer to it as long as you study, because it will connect the different topics and the concepts, and we will do this as long as we are going through the slides. So I will be referring back to this figure many times during the next videos.